This is Maxx Crosby, arguably one of the best defensive ends in football today. And what makes Maxx Crosby so great is that he has never missed a game in his entire professional career, a feat that is unheard of in today's NFL. In fact, he even plays over 98% of the snaps on defense, something that no other defensive end can even come close to in the NFL. So when Maxx Crosby suffered a high ankle sprain in the second to last play against the Baltimore Ravens victory, it was concerning as to whether or not he would even be able to play the following week against the Carolina Panthers. But like Maxx Crosby always does, he showed up and he gave it his best effort. But it was obvious that he was hobbled. He was not 100%, probably not even 80%. He simply wasn't the wrecking ball that he usually is. So it wasn't that big of a surprise when it was announced that he would not even be practicing. What was a big surprise is that he was completely ruled out for the following week's Cleveland Brown game at home.
What's the expectation for Maxx Crosby to play on Sunday?
He'll be out.
This would be the first time that Maxx Crosby has ever missed a game. But what is more concerning is the fact that this was a home game and Maxx Crosby wasn't even on the sideline, not even in the locker room, for the Raiders to cheer on his brothers in silver and black. And this is really concerning because Antonio Pierce made this statement after the Carolina Panthers game here.
I think there was definitely some individuals that made business decisions, and we'll make business decisions going forward as well.
Now, who was Antonio Pierce talking about? Who he was talking about was in fact Jack Jones, our burgeoning star cornerback who simply hasn't been playing very well and has been called out for his lack of effort when it comes to tackling. And therefore, Jack Jones had to sit out for the first quarter of the Cleveland Browns victory at home. And Coach Antonio Pierce made it clear this is the guy when he said this.
Antonio, I know Jack Jones didn't play that first quarter. Is that just kind of that sign of that accountability that you've referenced in the past?
Yeah, that was my decision. That's between me and Jack.
Jack Jones had to learn a lesson. I think he's learned the lesson. He certainly played better than he has. He played with more effort. He got into some really good tackles. So I think that the business decision statement has been put to rest. In fact, Antonio Pierce even said this after the victory against the Cleveland Browns.
To be honest, right, there's a lot of hoopla and stuff, and it probably started with me with my comments, and I apologize to him for that. Don't want to be a distraction that way.
So was it a mistake for him to make that statement? Yeah, I think it is. You should probably keep those things in-house with your players, not with the national media. Lesson learned for a rookie head coach. But was he talking about Maxx Crosby? I don't believe so. And that's good news. Maxx is most likely not in the doghouse because he gives his effort no matter what, even with a high ankle sprain. So why is Maxx Crosby not at the game, a home game, where even though it's just a high ankle sprain, he should be there on the sidelines? Not a big deal for somebody with an ankle sprain. Even Davante Adams, who has a hamstring injury right now, was at the game on the sidelines, cheering on and coaching up his fellow receivers and team as the Raiders were able to pull out the victory against the Browns. But no sign of Maxx Crosby. And this is concerning because it's unlike Maxx Crosby not to be there to support his team. Is Maxx Crosby's injury worse than we feared? Is he actually in a boot right now? Is there concern that he may have to have some type of a surgery? Will he be out for more than just 1 week? Those are the questions that we need to be asking, that nobody's asking right now. And I don't understand why. The national media, the Raiders media, and other podcasters, nobody has pointed out the fact that Maxx Crosby was missing during a home game. Is Maxx okay? Will he be returning for the Denver Broncos game coming up next Sunday? Or is he going to be out for that game as well? Now let's move on to Davante Adams and his injury. Davante Adams suffered an apparent hamstring injury. Also, Michael Mayer was missing from this game completely as well. Not on the sideline, not in the locker room, nowhere to be seen with a personal issue. Is Michael Mayer in the doghouse with Coach Antonio Pierce? And is Davante Adams upset that Gardner Minshew is continuing to be the QB? We don't really know, so we don't want to speculate too much, but it does appear that there is something going on internally with the Raiders and a few of the players. And I think Michael Mayer could be on the chopping block. And I say this even more so now due to the fact that Harrison Bryant had a really good game without a Michael Mayer in there. Harrison Bryant is an experienced tight end. He's a good pass catcher, he's a great blocker, and that's why the Raiders brought him in. And Brock Bowers is and will be continuing from here on out the star tight end of the Raiders. So where does that leave Michael Mayer? And how does that tie into Davante Adams? Let's jump into that. First, Michael Mayer was selected second round for the Raiders just last year, and he had a pretty decent rookie showing. Nothing flashy, nothing that says superstar written all over him, but definitely a reliable, good traditional tight end. But is that going to fit with the Raiders moving forward now that we have Brock Bowers? Well, obviously not, because Brock Bowers is going to be the number one tight end out there on almost every single play. And the Raiders had the intention of coming out and playing 12-man personnel, maybe even 13-man personnel, where you have 2 or 3 tight ends out there on the field. But that has not worked out whatsoever so far in the season, and it appears in the Cleveland Browns game that the Raiders finally abandoned the idea of 12 or 13-man personnel, and they are now sticking to 11-man personnel, which is working, where you spread out 3 wide receivers and 1 tight end, spread the field, make defenses also do the same. That opens up running lanes so you can get the running game going, which the Raiders did in abundance in this past game. With that type of success, it is most likely that the Raiders are going to stick with what's working, and what's working is 11-man personnel, which leaves Michael Mayer on the outs. Now, Michael Mayer is still a very good, promising tight end in the NFL, and that means he's going to have some draft capital. Will it be a second-round pick? No. But you could easily trade Michael Mayer to a team that needs a tight end, especially somebody of his caliber and potential, for something in exchange. I'm thinking New York Jets for Haason Reddick. Haason Reddick is a proven pass rushing defensive end, and our defensive line is a little banged up, and especially if Maxx Crosby is going to be out for any length of time. We had a really good game with Charles Snowden, Janarius Robinson. They did a fantastic job as backup guys, but can you rely on them to steadily do what they were able to do against the Browns? It's unlikely. They are young, they are raw, they still need some time to develop and grow. Haason Reddick is ready. He is a plug-and-play defensive end. So if Max's injury is a big deal, then Michael Mayer could be a guy that ends up with the Jets. Now, how does that tie with Davante Adams? The Raiders were able to pull out a victory without Davante Adams on the field, and for the first time, it really seemed like that offense was clicking without him there. And why? Because when Gardner Minshew is out there, Davante Adams is such a big personality and such a big star in the NFL that it makes both Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, whoever the quarterback is, feel as though they need to get Davante the ball 15 times a game no matter what. And that makes us really one-dimensional. Without Davante Adams in the game, Gardner Minshew seemed a lot more free. Still not perfect, and I still believe that Aiden O'Connell would do a better job than Gardner Minshew. However, that being said, Gardner Minshew just looked much more relaxed, and he was spreading the ball around, and Luke Getsy opened up the playbook with a lot more creativity in this game than he has in past games when Davante Adams is in there. Could this mean that Davante Adams simply isn't as needed as we thought he was? Yes, he's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. However, if his being one of the best wide receivers in the NFL makes your quarterback one-dimensional and you're losing games, then is it not better to trade the best wide receiver in the NFL and get a lot of capital back in return? I think so. And what better place than to do a deal with the New York Jets for Michael Mayer for Haason Reddick, as well as Davante Adams for a first-round draft pick. If you do that, the Raiders now have 2 first-round draft picks. If Gardner Minshew is not going to work out, you have the draft capital to move up in the draft and get the guy that you want. Whether it's Milroe, Cam Ward, Carson Beck, Shedeur Sanders, whoever may be the hot guy in the draft next year, the Raiders would have the draft capital to go out and get him and finally have that franchise quarterback for years to come. Trey Tucker, DJ Turner, and Jacoby Myers proved that they are absolutely ready to take the next step in their careers and become stars in the NFL. So it may be that the Raiders simply don't need Davante Adams, and we also don't need his $42 million price tag coming next year. This is going to free up a lot of cap space for the Raiders to make moves that are going to be necessary moving forward. I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody does. But these are interesting questions that need to be answered, and I, for one, am going to continue asking them until we get the answer. If you like what you've seen and you got some value out of this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. We really appreciate each and every one of you who do so. And if you don't mind hitting that like button,